So now let's move on to our cutting. So you'll see over here in these windows, cutting. And there are a couple different ways that we can create our cutting information. Is we can do this auto miter. That would mean if you were building, let's say, a coffee table or a trailer or something in this software, you could hit the auto miter when your two pieces just hit the corner, and it will automatically generate the cuts and angles and wrappers for that. But this is round tubing, and we don't have any perfect corners here, and we've got bends instead of cut pieces. We don't hit the auto miter. Now this auto cut, when you select that, any one of these pieces that are just a perfect 90-degree angle, it's going to create the auto cut wrapper for that. So I'm going to hit yes. And you can see a couple of these straight pieces, when we click on them, it automatically generated these cutting wrappers. Now, if we zoom in on them, you can actually see the profile, this black line going through, and it is showing you that cut feature, right? And the really nice thing with this is if we double click on this part, it will bring up the cutting wrapper. And this is printed to size, to scale in your blueprint. So if we don't have a tube notcher, or if you don't have it, if you're at another school or something using this, you can cut this out and tape it to your tubing and trace this line and cut it with a die grinder or whatever you've got, and it will fit up to this other tube exactly how the blueprint has it drawn. It tells you the cut angle, the cut size. So we would use a 1-inch die for this, or a 1-inch hole saw, and we would cut it at 41 degrees. But that's if you have a tube notcher like we do. If you don't, then you would, like you said, cut this out and tape it around the tube. The other benefit to this is sometimes we have some pretty gnarly cuts that need to be done that will not fit in our tube notcher. And we will have to tape these around the end of the tubes so that we can actually get it to meet up against the other tubing nice and tight so that we can get a good weld on. Now, let's zoom out, let's send it back home. Let's make sure that it created all of our cutting wrappers. What I like to do with all of these straight pieces is if I go over to this tab, parts, and I select these tubes, you should be able to see it light up on the, so if I select straight 1, I click that, oh, that's straight 2. So straight 2 is that middle cross member. So I'm going to rename this, so I'll click it again and name it middle lower cross member. That way all these straight pieces aren't just random names, I know what they go to. And this straight 1, that's actually our head tube. So I'm going to rename this head tube. And this actually won't be cut out, but it give us our cutting wrapper, or it will when we go make that piece. Now straight 3 is this front lower cross member. Let's see, that's the middle upper cross member. And the last one, top, let's call it upper cross member. All right, now these are all named and labeled so that when we get them out in the shop, we actually know what the heck they are. So let's go back to cutting, because I don't think it created it for our head tube. So when we go to make a new cut and generate a cutting wrapper, we're going to select new cut, and you have to select what tube we want to try to notch. And you'll see that it generates a little 3-dimensional drawing here. We want to notch these tubes to our 1.5 inch material. So I'm going to select that part and this tube And because it's going to come in contact with the other main frame, I'm going to select that as well. So you're selecting any and all pieces that this is going to come in contact with and hit complete. Now, if we zoom in on this, you can see it generated the cutting wrapper. We didn't even really need to select that tube, but sometimes on your head tube or whatever pieces, if your tube comes in contact with another, select every one of them that it would potentially come in contact with so that the profile for that tubing is generated for your cuts. So let's do another one. Let's do this other side. So new cut, I've got to select that tube, our head tube, and this tube, and hit complete. And again, it created our cutting wrapper for us. Make that so much easier out in the shop. Now we've got to do the same for our foot pegs because I'm not sure it created that. Oh, it did in that auto cut. Sometimes the auto cut will generate anything that's outside of the norm as far as simple, but when there are more than one tubes meeting, let's say that, for example, I'll just hurry and create one. Go straight here to here. Now, when we go to create our cutting wrappers or our auto cut, it won't generate that because it's got 3 intersecting tubes. So when we generate our cutting wrappers for that, you would need to hit new cut. We're working on this end of the tube right now, not the top right now. We'll generate for the other end here in a second. So we're going to select the main frame and the right foot peg and hit complete. Now you can see it's got all the different cuts in there from all the different angles so that we can actually make that meet nice and tight like. Now we would have to do it to the top as well. So we're going to hit new cut, select the tube again, and select that upper main frame. And it looks like it might come in contact with this part as well. So I'm going to select that and hit complete. Now, it didn't need to select this tube, but now it's generated that cutting wrapper for that part. All right. But that was just for an example. So let's delete that. All right. Now I didn't create my cross members for here earlier, so I'm going to do that now. And again, let's create our cutting wrappers. So that tube to here. And I believe we could actually select both at the same time and hit complete. And let's see, it only generated it. Oh, it screwed it up. So that's why we only select one at a time. So let's hit Control Z. We're going to go new cut, this tube down to the bottom, complete. New cut, this upper to the main frame, complete. Now we've got our cutting wrapper for both ends on the start end and the rear. New cut, complete. New cut, complete. Okay, now that we've got our frame completed, and we've got all of our cutting wrappers done, all of the cutting, everything is finished, then we're ready to print this setup pack.